can we start with, maybe you could just share, how did you find colostrum and learn about the benefits, and how did that turn into a business for you?
Okay. Yes. How did I find colostrum? I actually grew up on a small dairy farm. When I was 7 years old, I went to live with my godparents in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. My family moved to Wellsville, Utah. I landed in Wellsville when I was 8. I was a little hyper as a child. I'm a high functioning ADHD. So when I came back from my godparents' farm, I hadn't calmed down a lot. My dad thought it would be good to give me some responsibility, so I went out to the dairy farmers and I bought my very first bull calf. Now, I will say, don't kill the messenger for the message here. Okay, well, I'm 56, so this goes back a long time ago. If a dairy farmer has a baby bull calf, they either go to auction or they don't. And the don't is they probably perished. Okay. Well, I bought a day old bull calf for $5. My dad gave me a concoction because he grew up on a very big dairy farm in Myrtle, South Dakota, which consisted of 2 eggs with the shell, a shot of whiskey, and first milk. Well, first milk then we now know is colostrum today. And you can literally watch a baby calf, because we've done enough research now throughout the world, that if a baby calf doesn't get at least 2 quarts, they literally wilt. Their eyes sink in, their tongues roll out, their heads are on the ground. They are perishing, right? Without 2 quarts, there's an 85% sickness or mortality rate. So with this concoction, it was like giving a jump start to these baby calves. Well, I turned around, raised that calf, and sold him for $1,800. I'm a fairly cognizant individual, even at that age, and decided I can do this over and over and over and over again, which I did. By the time I was 10, I had a fairly large bank account in my own personal name, not my parents. Okay. Jump ahead. I was the research and marketing director for a anti-aging clinic dealing with injectable synthetically created HGH. One of our big television talk show hosts said, write a book, we'll bring you on our TV show. This is the late 80s, and we'll explode you. Well, I got commissioned to write that book. So whenever I've written a book, I like to do a little history of where we've been, where we're at today, and what does the future hold. Well, the history of HGH comes from colostrum. They isolated using DNA recombinant technology, IGF-1, and growth hormone, synthesized it, and we have a multi-billion-dollar anti-aging industry out there with injectables. I get very excited, go back to the doctors and say, hey guys, I know about the benefits of colostrum. Why don't we sell this to all the folks that can't afford the therapy back then? They said, and I quote, we don't want the pinto people coming to our clinic. And I said, what do you mean by that? Well, you know, the lower class, the losers.
Hmm.
I quit under heated discussion, shall we say. But by that time, I had actually purchased from all over the world any colostrum that I could find. And I had sent it in to a gentleman by the name of Dr. Donald Lyon, who at the time ran the endocrinology lab at Cornell University, the veterinary diagnostics lab at Cornell University, and the Veterinary College of Medicine. Well, I get a call from another gentleman by the name of Dr. Al Fox, who says, I work very closely with Dr. Donald Lyon. We'd like to have a discussion with you. What are you looking for? And I said, well, I'm looking for the very best product to start with, and I want to make it better. I said, well, I grew up on a small dairy farm, and I think if you start at the farm level and increase the benefits for the cow, you're going to get a better grade of colostrum and milk. We had done so much testing through Dr. Lyon and through Dr. Fox that Cornell put out a letter on their letterhead stating that after their testing, we were the best in the world at what we did. And they went so far as to state that New Zealand and all others tested as transitional milk. Now, does that still have credence today? The answer is yes, because we've never changed since 1991. We've never manipulated. We've never changed anything. We don't remove stuff. We don't add stuff. If I'm using it in a formulation, that's a different formulation. But for our straight colostrum, we don't manipulate proteins or anything else. We've left it alone. We've won the People's Choice Award, the Reader's Choice Award. We've been in the Price Westinghouse catalog. We've been endorsed by the Chemical Toxin Working Group out of California for Prop 65. We have over 130 international editorials written about us through the Healthy Living magazine. I mean, just accolade after accolade after accolade because we've never changed. I understand some of the other quote unquote colostrums or what certified as transitional milks, they're looking for a marketing edge. Well, I'm a firm believer if you leave it whole as what it was intended to be, and you leave those parameters alone, you have 700 plus different constituents that can do a body good.
Well,
Right.
one thing that I was impressed with is I found that the Western Price Foundation also recommends Anovite. And for me, that's huge because that's kind of where I first began to learn about, health and real food and all that. So that kind of leads into my next question. A lot of, as you probably know, the Western Price Foundation teaches people to really look into their farms, go visit their farms, make sure that they're raising their animals in healthy, sustainable ways, and that they're mostly pastured. And so that was my next question is, I know I love that about Anovite. I know that the colostrum does come from cows that are pastured. But I was just wondering if you can tell me more about those farms where the colostrum comes from and what you know about the cows. How do you vet those farms to be sure that they are raising the animals the way that you want?
Well, first of all, we in the United States, most dairies that are out there do lot feeding only, meaning they don't allow them to pasture feed,
Right,
right?
factory farms,
And
basically.
we want both. Part of the lot feeding is the ability to maintain a nutritional parameter, okay? But you also want the pasture side of it because cows do something that you and I do not. That little tick that may be out in the woods or out in the field that we are fearful of, they bite a bovine just as much as they latch onto us, right? But the difference is a bovine will actually create an antibody where we do not. Well, that antibody gets passed through their colostrum, not their milk, but their colostrum. And we want that because that little benefit to the colostrum, not all cows are going to carry that, right? Not all cows carry, not every human being gets bitten by a tick. But what we're looking for is to get as much exposure out there. Here's another one. Anthrax is a naturally occurring substance within pastures, not in lots, but in pastures. So the cows will build a natural antibody for those types of things that they're exposed to. So you want to make sure that you're doing both, but you don't want just one or just the other. As an example, if you're just pasture feeding, you're not continuing that nutritional parameter that they absolutely need, number one. Number two, you have bacteria that ends up on the outside of that teat, right? So if a baby calf is born in the pasture and that teat isn't clean, that baby calf, unlike a human baby, does not have a functional immune system when they're born. Everything for them gets jump started. They don't have passive transfer. So they have to make sure that they get at least 2 quarts. That gets everything going for them, their immune system, their growth patterns, everything. For us, before we ever take our first breath or see the light of day, mom has already given us through passive transfer a functional immune system, growth patterns, all kinds of different things that are beneficial. We know that colostrum jumpstart 40 different processes for that newborn human baby, and with colostrum from a bovine and colostrum from a human being bioidentical, boy, they're very compatible at that point. We want to make sure that we get the best of both worlds. Part of that nutritional program, a baby calf only has a 6-hour window until their stomachs literally close off. They'll get benefits from the immune side, the immune factors, but they don't get any more benefits from the growth factor side. Where you and I, we'll get those benefits. However, if you take and look at the diseases that cows are exposed to, if you feed them colostrum, they're going to get benefit on the immune side, which means healthier cow, healthier output for milk, healthier output for colostrum. So you can take different things and get different benefits for whether it be a human being, whether it be your family 4-legged fur babies, or whether it be a bovine that someone's milking. Where do we get them? Strictly from the United States. California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, some parts of Utah, Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, Minnesota, Wisconsin, North and South Dakotas, and moving. Testing is huge for us. I've always been sort of the black sheep out there in the nutritional world, because I tell people all the time, don't trust me, don't trust them. We're both trying to sell you something. Ask for third-party validation. Ask for a C of A, certificate of analysis. As far as I know, I am the only colostrum on the face of the planet that'll say, yeah, where would you like me to email it? Now, when you get it, it's not going to say Anovite, it's going to say Immune Tree. Why? Because that's our production facility. But am I willing to do that? Every single batch. And we go through a lot of batches. What I had in my back pocket was the #1 university diagnostics lab in the world as far as veterinary diagnostics, saying, I'm the best in the world, period. Not even close with anybody else. Part of the agreement that we do when I first started getting into the colostrum end of it was showing the farmer that if you do more than just lot feeding, you're going to get a better grade of milk and you're going to get more milk. Part of it was setting up this process and these parameters for them to work within. When we go to a farm, we'll invest anywhere from low of $10,000 to as much as $25,000 per farm to set things up, because they have to do certain things that meet our requirements. Can you test every single batch? Absolutely. Okay. You're only going to freshen about 10% of your herd on a rotational basis. Okay. So it's not like you're getting hundreds of thousands of gallons here. So for us, in order for them to maintain the integrity, we can say, we're going to test every single batch. We want you to pull this little vial so that we can do that. We'll send the trucks out. We'll do all these different things that are going to help you, right? That are going to put you ahead of your neighbor who's, say, a dairy farmer as well. But you're going to have to do certain parameters to get there. And it's going to take us a little time to get you up to speed. Getting them up to speed is not necessarily, hey, we've put everything on your farm and you're done. It's also, here's what you're going to be doing and feeding and maintaining, right? Here are the logs that you're going to have to maintain. Here are the testing that you do. We want to know that you're, yes, pasture feeding, but you also want to lot feed. And here's why you want to do both. Now, some people may go, well, geez, don't you want to only be pasture fed? No, because we have this bug running around the world today, right? That will remain unnamed, so to speak. But it's put all of us in masks. Can a cow catch that? Not in a field, but can a cow catch that? Yes, it can. Now, I just got through talking about how a cow, once exposed to certain things, can build antibodies. That's kind of their premise. They have to and pass it along through their colostrum. Okay? So we want both. We want them to be exposed to you and I, but we also want them to be exposed to the field, to the pasture, to the bugs that are literally out there, along with everything that's in the soil, right? We want to maintain that integrity, though, of both, because now they're going to be building things and passing it on through the colostrum that they normally may not have been exposed to. Testing, and more testing. Right? We test at the farm level. We test at the pickup level. This is where not only this farm and this farm are now coming together, right? We want to make sure that nobody's contaminated that combination. I love folks when they say, well, is it certified organic? There was an article that was put out a few years ago about the certification process, and there are 3 tiers to being certified organic. I personally would very much like to see parts per million. That is a 1 + 1 = 2, not a, well, if you didn't hit the top tier, you can still be considered certified organic, but you can be just a little bit polluted. I want to have the full Monty, I want to have the full testing, and I want to be able to say to everybody out there, take a look, this is clean. We do in-house testing. We do outside third-party testing, but we also do this extra, right? This is where we've asked FPL Laboratories, Cornell University did this a long time ago as well. We would always ask these labs, go find us on the marketplace. You buy us. That way, I don't send it to you. So you buy us, you test that lot, send us that information then. Now, nobody can point the finger and say, well, you spiked the punch. You sent them the best, but you're selling this other stuff.
Yeah.
No, they bought it off the shelf.
Perfect.
Period.
Paola, did you have something you wanted to add?
So we have our own dairy cow, and so we just have like one little family cow, and you know, like when she comes in for milking time, because we like the raw milk, like that's that's a time when I will feed her stuff because I want to get some extra nutrients. You know, cows are under a lot of stress. I think the breeds
Yeah.
nowadays aren't as healthy as they used to be. And so you do kind of need to support them and give them extra support. And then also, like, a lot of places, I mean, I live somewhere in Texas where, you know, we get grass pretty much all year round, except even in the winter. Actually, it's in the summer where most of our grass dies because it gets so hot. You know, there's
Hmm.
times in the year where you do have to, you know, basically what they call lot feed them, which is just bringing them in to go eat, you know. And so I think a lot of people just kind of don't realize that you know, humans are becoming less healthy, and overall it's you know, farmers are having a harder and harder time to find really healthy cows to add to their farm. And so, you know, cows have a quicker lifespan, and so, you know, they can kind of breed their herd and get them really healthy over time, but that takes quite a bit of effort.
I milked 7 cows when I was a kid, morning and night by hand, and you get to know who they are, right? They have their own personalities. When you get into strictly lot feeding, they're a number. Literally, they're a number on their ear. They've been tagged. A lot of the farms that we deal with and the farmers that we deal with, are they skeptical? Very, at the very beginning. You're going in and trying to educate them on, would you like more milk? They don't care about the colostrum. That's a byproduct, right? They're looking at it saying, my bottom line comes from how many pounds of milk my dairy herd can produce for me a year. Period. You know, and you're trying to convince them to, hey, let us do what we do, and you're going to see an increase from this. Okay, and it may take anywhere from 6 months to a year for us to really ramp things up, but you're going to be seeing a difference. A lot of times they kind of look at you and think, you got a third eye growing out of your forehead. It's never going to work because this is the way we've always done it. We're never going to change. But then when you start looking at and saying, if I feed you McDonald's every single day, how long do you think you're going to live? And are you going to live to the fullest opportunity of life? Well, no. Why not? Well, it's junk food. It's bad for you. It's going to clog my arteries. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. Okay. Now let's talk about your cows. If you're feeding them junk food all day long, are they giving you the best opportunity? Well, no. Okay. Well, what if we just did this? There's this little substance that you, for the most part, throw away, right? That first milk, colostrum. What if we pelletized that and gave it back to the cow? Well, what is that going to do? Oh, it's very good for their immune system. Wait a minute. You like our immune system? Yeah, absolutely. What if you fed that back to them in the immune side of it and it made them healthier? Do you think they're going to produce better quality milk or even more milk? Well, yeah. So what would you rather feed them? McDonald's or a nutritional program that will put more money in your pocket by listening to us? What people don't realize, they do with fur babies, they do with cats and their dogs, those ones you cuddle with, right? There, a lot of people will spend more money on their fur babies than they will their own children, right, or themselves even. But they don't get these bigger animals. They look at them and just kind of think, well, they're just over there, right? Well, they have the same immune systems, they have the same growth patterns, the same aging. You know, they have the same kinds of things that you and I do.
Yeah.
But once you put it on the scale of you versus this, would you like to feel better? And if you feel better, are you going to be performing better? Are you going to have a better quality of life? Is your output going to be much higher? Well, yeah. If their quality of life is higher, if they're healthier, if they're not struggling with disease and other things, is their output going to be higher?
I love all that, by the way. I think that makes great sense. I know that a lot of the places where we've gotten our raw milk through the years do the same thing. Like they give them extra nutrients when they're in there for milking or whatever. So I know that's commonly done with even the really really good farms. So I feel good about that. So the other thing I love is that you said you don't take anything out or add anything in. So you just freeze dry to get the moisture out. Is that correct?
Good. Well, you don't freeze dry it. We spray dry it.
Okay.
Think about a huge tube, and you pour liquid into the top, and then powder comes out. And this is obviously we're breaking this down into some real basic things here, but you pour liquid in the top, and it comes out powder in the bottom. Have you ever boiled milk and it hits the sides and it scalds?
Yeah.
Same thing. You have a straight tube, drop it in here, kind of bounces sometimes, hits the bottom, you've got powder. depending on the percentage of moisture and that kind of thing, we usually float anywhere from 2%, which can, if it's that low, gets a little crunchy, right? We don't standardize it. So we don't manipulate that. That part of it isn't manipulated. We want to have anywhere from a 2 to 6% moisture content. If it's on the higher side, boy, is it silky. It's almost like cake batter, right? It's you can ball it up in your fist. If you do it really tight, you can open it up and actually see your fingerprints embedded into the colostrum, right? If it's on the lower end, it gets a little crunchy, right? A little different. You might even see some of that, what they call ash. As it hits the sides, you'll see tiny little flakes. That's ash, same thing. So when you look at the 6 components that make up a base colostrum, fat, lactose, casein, albumin, proteins, and ash, those are the 6 that when you look at our labels, there's a big 6 on it, right? It represents 2 things. One is the major 6 components that make up colostrum. Within those components, you find the 700 constituents, growth factors, immune factors, cytokines, leukocytes, all these different wonderful things that are there. And you can look at that and say it's not only based around those 6 majors, but it's also based around the time frame. There's a book out there called The Fundamentals of Dairy Chemistry. Nature doesn't change very quickly. It takes millions of years to change something. Well, same thing with a cow. You don't change something unless you're manipulating it externally, right? But internally, this is what colostrum is. This is what it's always been. And you're not going to have a change overnight unless you, men, are doing something to it.
Okay, so if you spray dry it, though, it's staying raw, correct?
It is. It
Okay.
is. We actually, Cornell University did some testing on one of the most heat sensitive issues, which is IGF-1. And I literally hand stripped the 0 hours from a cow on the Cornell farms myself. They tested that, and that was the baseline. Then they tested myself, multiple lots, and others against that 0 baseline. And what they found is we had a 3 to 5% change variation in how much IGF-1 was still bioactive, where everybody else was maybe a third of what 0 was.
What about like enzymes and stuff like that?
Same thing. If you remove, here's what's fascinating. I understand where marketing comes in for products and for companies, right? They want to differentiate themselves. So they go, we've removed all the fat because all that stuff's bad, right? Then we've sprayed a sunflower fat back on, lipid back on it. See, we've made it 1,500% more bioavailable through your gut. Now, I look at that and I go, okay, have you ever burped a baby? This gets a little descriptive, okay? Have you ever burped a baby and it spits up on you? And it looks like cottage cheese curds. That curd is a substance, as long as you leave the fat alone, called renin or casein. And it puts a protective barrier around all those goodies so that it bypasses the stomach acids, and then you can absorb it, okay? Well, that's what Mother Nature has already done. Why remove it? Well, I understand the marketing side of it because it makes us different than everybody else out there, right? Well, we don't remove it, but the science, and I love science, the science says whatever percentage of fat you've removed is also the amount that you've removed of the fat-soluble vitamins, minerals, enzymes, growth factors, all of the cofactors that make up the IGF-1 superfamily, all of those things, whatever percentage and they remove it, by the way, down to 90, they remove 95% of it. So all of those things just went out the window.
I love it that you guys don't take any of that good stuff out. That's awesome.
And that's why I say, ask for C of A, because our fat content will range anywhere from 18 to 22%. Our IgG, I love this one. Way back when I first started in early 90s, everybody was focused on IgG. It's the only thing in there that you can test for, and blah blah blah. And when I was back at Cornell, they were like, "That's a joke." I said, "What do you mean? That's what everybody's testing for." They said, "It's one of the antibodies, yes, but you can manipulate it. Number one, and number two, I would much rather have IGF-1, or I'd rather have proline-rich polypeptides, or They were giving me all these other substances that said, beyond IgG, that's dirt. That's the stuff you sweep out and throw away on the backside. You want all this other stuff because, boy, here are things that are going to have an impact on modulating autoimmune scenarios, right? Proline-rich polypeptides. Here's growth factors that actually have been shown to regenerate, right? Those are much more important than an antibody that we know what IgG does, but all these other things do, miraculous things almost.
Right. We want how it comes in nature, because the way that God made it is what we need the most. That's what's best, obviously. Okay, so it's raw still. Then my question is, like, the other day I put it in my coffee, and with the frother, and it was just like yummy cream. Then I tested the temperature of my coffee to see how hot it was, and it was 160. And isn't that then negating the benefits of it? I mean, what temperature is it no longer raw?
Oh gosh, you gotta go over 500 degrees. And here's why. All that fat that's in there, not only does the fat carry a lot of goodies with it, but it also acts as a barrier for those protective proteins, enzymes, and all the other things. If you cook it, like I bake with it, I do all kinds of things, but I don't go above a 500 degree. Typically it's around 7, but I don't go above 500 degrees. I make spaghetti squash with a garlic sauce, and I'll use 4 or 5 heaping tablespoons into my garlic sauce, because it's just, you're right, it makes it creamy, right? But I'm also getting that in a different format. And I've had to become creative. I'm 56 today. I'll be 57 just this next month. But when I was 28, I used to be fairly extreme. Took a 20-foot cliff skiing, folded my knee, and I've had 7 ACL reconstructs on my left knee. I've had 3.5 inches of bone off my left hip put into that knee, cadaver graft, my own hamstrings, you name it, I've had it done. I have titanium that surrounds my spinal cord and my neck. I have broken both wrists at the same time twice, all the ribs, you name it. I've been there. I used to do some fun things when I was a kid.
What the heck? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But here's what's fascinating. When I was writing my thesis, which turned into my book, there was a little article from the American Chiropractic Journal that said we think some of those natural growth factors may have an impact on soft tissue. Well, I had my last full ACL reconstruct when I was 35. And I had so much damage, they removed all the meniscus. I was bone on bone. And my doctor said, we're going to have to replace your knee. I'll see you in 10 years. Okay. Well, that was when I was 45. Well, 3 years ago, I had a orthoscopic, because I was fooling around in an airplane in Trinidad and Tobago and kind of fell out of it. And I walked in, and he says, you're here for a knee replacement. I said, no, I'm here for a meniscus repair. He said, oh, your good knee. I said, no, my bad knee. He said, there's not a chance in heaven. I said, well, what are you talking about? He says, you don't have any. Might want to take a look at the MRI, which he did. He's like, and I can hear him just puzzled. What is going on? You're not bone on bone anymore.
Wow.
Now, I'm not saying, because we don't want to make curative claims, but I'm not saying
you're just telling what happened with you.
A depleted body, okay, and you put building blocks into that depleted body. Now, your body still remembers having all of that high octane. It just may not be producing enough of that high octane to do the job that it once did when you were younger. But colostrum brings a high octane with it, right? And that's the fun part about leaving it alone. So if you start manipulating it.
Are you saying, though, that I find it hard to believe, though, that all the nutrients are still intact at, say, like you said, 500 degrees? Because I know that with raw milk, once you heat it to a certain point, you are killing like the enzymes and some of the, maybe there's still some nutrients left, which I'm glad if that's the case. But I'm just trying to decide, like, should you aim for eating most of it, at a lower temperature, but it's okay to use it sometime at a higher temperature?
Yeah, that's. I'm not saying do it at the higher temperatures all the time. No. Okay. For the most part, you're going to, like, I take colostrum capsules every single day. I take 15 of those. I do powders at night, because if you've tried the powder during the day and you want to talk to anybody, it's like taking a big old scoop of peanut butter and it's not going to have a conversation, right? But at night, I'll pack it along the lining of the gum, and I'll actually sleep with it in like a chaw, right? Like a chipmunk, because it'll absorb while you're sleeping. Well, the fun thing about that is, if you've ever looked at children, if they break something or you have to have something fixed, outside of the crying and outside of the fixing, you get them back in the car, and what do they tend to do? They curl up and they go to sleep. Why? because the brain is telling the rest of their body, shut down. We need to release those natural growth factors for regeneration. We need to do, and especially for little peewees, accelerated regeneration. Well, here's what's interesting. Our peak at those natural growth factors at around 20. Whatever your peak was at 20, by the time you're 30, cut it in half. If you have stress, which, boy, in today's environment, there's a lot of stress, right? Stress eats growth factors, which keep us young, youthful, and regenerating. It gobbles it up like candy. By the time you're 60, if you can see between my fingers, that's about how much growth factors you're actually still producing. Doesn't mean that you don't have the receptor sites. Doesn't mean that they don't open up while you're sleeping, which is when they do open up. Well, why not allow them to open and then put that high octane in when those receptor sites are wide open?
Did I see somewhere that those who are sensitive to dairy can still take colostrum with no problems?
The answer is yes. I always ask a person when they say, hey, I can't take dairy because it gives me a tummy ache or whatever. I always ask that person, did you always have that? Even as a kid, do you remember eating cheese sandwiches or pizzas? And, did you drink milk? Most of the folks, right, the vast majority say, no, I had all that. I had ice cream and all that when I was a kid. Usually it's at puberty, right? Hormonal changes happen and our bodies stop producing the necessary enzymes to break down those sugars and proteins. Or a collateral event takes place that is so traumatic that it throws off your enzymatic output again. A death in the family, a divorce, a car accident, where your bodies don't produce the necessary enzymes to, again, break down those proteins and sugars.
Wait, that is so interesting. I have never heard that before, that a stress response could be a decrease in the enzymes you need to digest certain foods.
Why not?
I that's fascinating. I had
Think
not
about
heard
it.
that
Think
before.
about it. If we traumatize you,
Mhm.
is your body still fully functional the way it was before the trauma?
Right. I knew that part, but I didn't realize that it could possibly affect food sensitivities. That is so interesting.
Now, take colostrum that has those necessary enzymes in it. And do I say jump in with both feet? No, I usually tell people start out slow, literally a pinch,
Yeah.
and try that, and then slowly take those baby steps. You didn't get to where you're at overnight, nor do you want to jump into it overnight. You want to do it to where your body starts to realize, hey, I'm getting those building blocks. Those receptor sites are open to receiving them, but you don't want to traumatize them again, right? You don't want to overwhelm them by just munching. You want to take it in baby steps and allow that body to start responding appropriately. Appropriately is it starts producing the necessary. If you can jumpstart your own body by putting in building blocks, then your body has a tendency to go, gosh, I remember that conversation, and I think we need to produce these things so we can talk.
I'm assuming the answer is no because it's a food, but is there anyone that should not take colostrum?
There are those folks that are 1 in a million that are allergies, right? There's sensitivities, and then there's the allergic EpiPens, situation.
Yeah.
Those folks I tell, talk to your physician.
Okay.
Right?
And the physician, most don't know what to do with that anyway. So
Well, we have this little guide called the Health Practitioner's Guide that I would tell you, print it out, hand it to your physician. Over the course of the next year or so, we're going to be doing some things for that community that will possibly open their eyes up to saying, wait a minute, there's a lot of research here, and there is. It's just they don't get a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
Their focus and their CE accreditation and all the other courses that they take are centered around the drug side of things,
Right.
which is normal for them. Well, what if you had a natural whole food substance that has all these 700 plus goodies in it, that is put in a format that they not only understand, can accept, and can be trained on and still receive those CE accreditations?
That would be
That's
great.
what we're moving towards.
So my last question, I love your personal testimony and how Colostrum has helped you with your, musculoskeletal issues and that kind of thing. Have you heard of others who have had similar, do you have
Oh
any
my
other
gosh.
favorite testimonials? I'm sure you have a zillion testimonials, but do you have any other, rock your socks off ones that you could share?
Winthrop Graham, 2-time silver medalist, busted up his knee doing, I think it's the hurdles, and got his body back. We helped Reverend Ron Williams at age 46, pushing 47, win Mr. Natural Universe. We have folks that have seen so dramatic. If you take a body and you say you're not going to sleep, you're going to have lots of stress, what's their performance going to be like? Now throw a substance in that maybe helps them sleep. That's when we're doing all that functional healing, right? Allows the body to work on itself much better and provides building blocks so that the body can use it and say, oh my gosh, I'm getting more youthful. Across the board, literally take any situation where people's, if you work out a lot and your joints aren't feeling as good as before, and all of a sudden they're feeling better because of it, right? Blood chemistries balancing out, cardiovascular issues getting better. Da, 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 da.
I love it. So tell me if this is right. This is what I'm most excited about with the product is there's an explosion of chronic health issues in our country, and all of them relate back to poor gut health because we have so many attacks on our immune system. And so I am mostly excited about what I've heard about how it can pretty much help your gut to heal, like to seal a leaky gut and to strengthen your immune system. So it can help you with any health issue, because once you get your gut strong, we all know that that's where the immune system resides, and then you're going to be healthy overall. So that's what I'm most excited about. Can you tell us a little more about how does it do that? How does it seal a leaky gut, and how does it boost our immune system?
Well, first of all, we never use the C word, cure, or the H word, heal. If you take a gut, and we all, from birth forward, okay, I always ask a question when I do some of the presentations, and I say, at what time frame do you start polluting your body?
When we were born, probably.
When you became a zygote in your mother's womb. Because whatever you were built on is whatever mom and grandma, they are now saying, was exposed to. So I know from my mom, she smoked, she drank. Is my body built on that? Absolutely. Fast food was okay back then. That's what my body was built on. We started dying the moment we were created.
The other thing I wanted to say, it's not just about dying later, it's about living better now.
Yes. And that's where the colostrum comes in, because again, if you have any stress going on in your life, even little ones, right? Think about all the news that's talking about the kids that are not able to go to school.
Yeah.
And the suicides and the debilitating issues that they are experiencing by staying at home. They need that exposure. That's creating stress. Any amount of stress that I throw at your body's going to respond. It's not going to be in a positive way, right? It's going to be in a negative way. Well, now take and put factors back into that depleted body, that the body says, oh my gosh, thank you. My tank was empty or nearly empty, and you just filled it up with building blocks. And I'm going to use this one, and it's like your body's going through a shopping mall, picking out little pieces, going, I need this, and I need this, and this, and this, and this. And all of a sudden you put it back in, and you're going, whew, I feel pretty good, right? That's what colostrum with its 700 constituents brings to the table. It's not just some proteins or some fats, because the fats that are in colostrum are very good fat, right? This whole idea that the media has portrayed that fats are all bad is not correct. You have good fats and you have bad fats, yeah.
Absolutely.
And most of our processed food is the bad fat.
Yes.
Those are the ones they should be picking on, but the whole food fats, those are the things that are good cholesterol and other things that help the body, not hurt it.
I love it. Well, you answered all my questions. Thank you so much for meeting with me today.
You are welcome. Thanks for having me.
I'm so
And if you want me back on other areas, I'm
okay.
your guy.
I'm sure I'll pick your brain again some other time. Thanks again,
Okay.
Dr. K.
Thank you all.